Ladies and gentlemen, today's video is going to be a gem. And not just because I'm in it, or because you are watching it. That contributes, but it's not the leading cause. The reason this video is a gem is that I almost never make content like this. I make chess videos about games and moves that happen. In today's video, I will show you the best chess move never played. That's all I have. Here we go. This was an incredible opportunity for a player in a one-on-one head-to-head match in a serious tournament, and the players are extremely strong grandmasters. Jordan van Foreest and Wesley So. Wesley So, perennial top 10 player. Jordan, one of the most creative chess players in the world. And in my opinion, here in 2026, maybe a sleeper pick for the next candidates tournament if he continues to go on a hot run and stay inspired and stay creative. This game was played in Romania, in Bucharest, and it was a classical game. They had 90 minutes on the clock, and the opening was something that they play quite frequently. It was knight f3, knight c6, the most common position ever reached, millions and millions of times. And then white went bishop to b5. It was a Spanish. Black responded knight f6, the Berlin trying to attack the pawn here. The Berlin wall, the Berlin endgame, very famous in the year 2000, Kramnik-Kasparov World Championship match. Nowadays, most people are declining the Berlin. They are, not allowing the pawn to be taken, and then play is developing from there. Jordan, however, goes here, and if black wants to take the lowest risk approach imaginable, black will take the pawn on e4. That's exactly what they do. And here white has a choice. Enter the Berlin endgame, the Harry Potter Goblet of Fire maze, the final stage of the Triwizard Tournament type of maze of the Berlin endgame, or not do that. The Berlin endgame is pawn to d4, knight to d6 attacking the bishop on b5, takes, knight f5, and this position. A wildly fascinating and complicated position, or you can avoid all of that and play rook e1 like Jordan did in the game. Rook e1 is a more modern move. Black responds with knight to d6, attacking the bishop, and in that time, black will try to get the king quickly out of the center of the board. This looks extremely unorthodox to put two knights in front of two pawns, but when grandmasters do it, they are allowed and they are geniuses, and when you do it, you get smacked. White now has several choices. Taking at this point is no longer as good because you're not guaranteed a queen trade. And so white at this point would just be giving up a bishop for no reason. Now, at a beginner level, you can play like this, really. It makes absolutely no difference. But at a grandmaster level, white has absolutely no hope for an advantage here. And that is what white is generally seeking in the beginning of a game at 2700 level. So knight takes e5 is the move instead. And the point is that if you take this bishop, white has a rook, a knight, and a king, and white would take the knight. It would be a discovered attack on the king, and the queen would be hanging, so you can't do that. And if you play knight takes e5, which is actually a relatively reasonable move, then after takes, and something like bishop all the way back to f1, white has a very slight advantage. Now, the game actually kind of goes like this, sort of. After knight d6, white takes. Black plays bishop e7. He doesn't blunder this. And now, Jordan here plays a move that in the database, 90% of the games retreat the bishop all the way back. And the reason you do that is that, you don't want the bishop to be taken, but you also don't have anywhere you can really put it. You don't want to put it in front of your d-pawn because that's stupid, because you obviously want to play d4 and then develop this bishop, etc. And you don't want to put it on e2 because that blocks your queen and your rook. So you don't want to do either of those things, which is why in this position, Jordan puts it here, which is weird. That's a weird move. That's a very uncharacteristic move. But like I said, unprincipled move. Uncharacteristic is, for the position, an unprincipled move. But Jordan is a very creative player, and clearly he has a direct attack against this king here, if it ever castles. Knight takes, rook takes, black castles. But if you actually seriously look at the position, if white ever plays queen to h5, threatening checkmate, you best believe that Wesley's not going to blunder that, right? So knight c3 is the move played by Jordan. He's kind of threatening knight to d5, looking to grab the bishop, which is why black plays this move c6. Very natural move. The knight is now blocked from going to the d5 square. And Jordan plays a move here that is not particularly impressive. He plays rook all the way back to e1. And it's kind of shocking that, this is super grandmaster chess. Bishop out to b5, and then you put it on d3. If you showed me this position, I would think two 400 rated players are just learning how to move the rook up and down the board. I mean, there's no Like, I would yell at them. I'd say, why have you blocked your center pawn? You're supposed to put 2 pawns in the center, knights and bishops, etc. But they are allowed to do this. Now, you will be even more impressed at Wesley's next move. Knight e8! He's trying to put a second pawn in the center and bring out his light-squared bishop. And now, Jordan plays queen e2, which attacks the bishop in the center of the board. The bishop has to move. It goes here. And he plays knight e4, looking to grab the bishop because, you know, if you get something like this, at least you can say, well, I have the bishop pair. And then I'm going to play like c3 and bishop c2. And, you know, already it's not even the best move, but you're going to try to get the bishop pair. Regardless, bishop d4 is played. He's running away. c3, he's trying to take the bishop. The bishop runs around to b6. At this point, you can see Jordan hasn't spent any time. He is quite well aware of the position. He's trying to go d4, and then the bishops are going to line up in this direction. Everything is going absolutely beautifully, but Wesley is doing a very nice job. d4, rook e8 attacks the queen. The bishop comes out to block. The knight goes here, targeting the bishop. And now, folks, may I present to you the greatest move that was never played. In this position, Jordan sidestepped the pin with queen to d3. Queen d3 is a very seamless move. You target the pawn on h7, and if black plays something like this, you move the bishop away from getting taken, bishop f4, and you are basically half a step ahead of black. Black has not developed the last piece. And if black does develop the last piece, now you kick out the knight, you pin the knight to the queen, you transfer the queen here, and the attack commences. You know, the attack just gets absolutely vicious here, all sorts of attacking ideas. Which is why black has to respond to this with the move queen h4, simultaneously defending the king and threatening the pawn on h2. And Jordan sat here with a near 1 hour time advantage on the clock. He hypothesized of playing the following move, and he never did. And that move is the utterly sensational and ridiculous bishop to h6. Bishop to h6 looks like a glitch. Like, it just looks like somebody spazzed. And you, I don't know. It just looks like one of those LLMs that's trying to play chess, and it just completely malfunctioned. It's like one of those, like, autopilot vehicles that just, like, it does something crazy on the, like, what is going on? What is bishop h6? Okay, so let's remove the eval bar because it demystifies a lot of this. Black is threatening queen takes pawn. Most of us in this position would play pawn to h3 and calculate knight takes bishop, don't take like this, rook takes, queen takes. And this position is roughly equal. Some of us would not play the move h3, some of us would play knight to f1, just defending against mate. Who plays here? Allow me to explain this move. First things first, this move opens up the rooks to see each other. So in some way, white is threatening to get the rook to the last rank and checkmate the opponent. However, the other thing that is happening is white is blocking the queen from defending h7. So there is this threat and this threat. That looks pretty complicated to deal with. But on the flip side, there is queen takes h2 with a direct assault on the king, and it would be mate if not for the move king to f1. And this would be mate if not for the knight. So everything is hanging on a knife's edge. This is absolutely fascinating. So bishop h6, right? Now, let's dive into this. If you take the bishop, you lose immediately, because if you take the bishop with basically anything, rook takes rook. Okay, so let's work backwards. What if rook takes rook first, rook takes rook, and then somebody takes the bishop? You can't. If you take it with the queen or the knight, it's back rank mate. If you take it with the pawn, it's queen h7, king f8, and queen h8. Okay, so we have just firmly decided that this bishop just cannot be taken. It cannot be taken. In fact, you probably shouldn't take the rook at all, because now there are two unstoppable threats. Queen takes h2 does absolutely nothing. Okay, so we cannot play rook takes rook. So if we cannot play rook takes rook, what do we play? Well, may I present to you the counterpart to the bishop sacrifice? Black in this position can play bishop f5, which is a pretty gangster move in its own right. So bishop f5 comes out just like standing in front of the laser beam. okay? And bishop f5 not only blocks that attack, it also defends the rook. So rook e8 is no longer anything, right? It's no longer anything. It's a way to buy time. Now, white has to take this with the queen. White can't take it with the knight because the knight needs to guard h1. Queen h2, king f1, queen h1 would be mate. So, if white, in this position, after bishop h... Remember, none of this happened. That's why the name of the video is what it is. Bishop h6, bishop f5. How about this for a variation? Queen takes f5. Now, since the rook is protected, you can actually take this, but first you need to play pawn to g6, which would block the attack on h7. So black has a choice. Do I take the rook now on e1, or do I play g6 immediately? And you must play g6 immediately and enter this variation. Rook takes e8, rook takes e8, queen to d7, attacking the rook, so the bishop still can't be taken. Rook to d8, counterattacking the queen. And now may I present to you rook e1! Because the queen can't be taken because this is made, because of the bishop, which is a ghost bishop. It should have been captured a million years ago. So rook e1, the queen cannot be taken. Black now has to take with the knight, because if you take with the queen, you're hanging this knight. So this, and now the only way, white wins a pawn. At the end of that entire skirmish, white could theoretically win a pawn, and the game would go on. Now, I told you that in that position, after queen takes f5, black has the option to trade rooks or not trade rooks. Black cannot trade rooks, because if black does, if in this position, black traded the rook first and then played the move g6, you would think, oh, there's no rook. I'm not attacking any rook, right? White wins in this position by playing queen d7 and trying to eat all these pawns. And if black plays queen takes h2 check, king to f1, and now knight takes h6, white wins here with an absolutely sickening piece of geometry. White doesn't go queen takes b7. No. White plays rook e8 check. What? Rook takes rook, queen takes rook, king g7. How can these three measly pieces deliver a checkmating attack? How on earth is this position? +6. That is because queen e5 check. And there is no way to stop the knight from causing a discovered threat on black's major pieces. If black plays f6, knight f5 check, queen takes queen. If black tries to run back here, I play this, and this geometric motif forces the king to come forward and lose the queen. Alternatively, you just give away your bishop, I take, and I'm up a full bishop at 2750 level, and I win the game. Ladies and gentlemen, bishop h6, bishop f5, queen f5, rook e1, g6, queen d7, queen h2, king f1, knight h6, rook e8, queen e8, king g7, queen e5, king g8, queen b8, king g7, knight f5. And I didn't just invent this on my own. Jordan saw this. He saw the move, bishop to h6, and he said this entire variation, 20 moves! He said it in the interview. So why didn't he play the move bishop h6 if it was so clever? What refutes bishop h6? Unfortunately, this utterly incredible concept is refuted by something even more savage. In this position, the only way to defend against this massive attack, you can enter the variation I just showed you. You can enter this, and then g6, take, this, rook e1, and then you can enter that. But the real way to defend against this is to play queen takes h2, king f1. And now you have to be a fan of Gotham content, because in this position, black can sacrifice the rook! Rook! What? Rook e4! Blocking the attack on mate and blocking the capture. The rook is anchored by a pawn. It can be taken. In fact, it probably should be taken. Because if at this point you reconsider, you like reevaluate your life choices and go here, well, the attack has already begun. You're in massive trouble. So you have to commit to the attack. You have to take the rook. But now black can give you a check that you relinquish control of the h1 square, put your king directly in the middle, and come back with the queen. And if you count the pieces, black has a bishop and an extra pawn for a rook. Technically, white is up a point of material. But white's position is terrible. In chess, you have material and king safety, and that king should not be there. There's a thunderstorm, and he's sitting at a beach holding a giant metal rod. He has very weird hobbies, this king. I don't know what he's doing. So the only move here is knight d6. Just giving up the knight. This is the only move for the advantage. Jordan had to see this knight d6 move in advance, because if queen takes, you have queen h7, king f8, queen h8, king e7, king f1, discovered check. Black cannot block with the bishop because he would lose the rook. Black cannot run this way because you would play bishop f5, king c7, bishop takes, and you can't take this because of the pin on the rook. And last but not least, if rook e1, if king f1 and the rook was attacking, bishop e6 is the best that you can do. Queen takes a8, queen f4, it looks like you're getting mated, but rook e2, queen h2 goes here. Queen takes b7, check, king to f6, rook e6! And after fe, queen c8! And even though you are losing all of your pieces, queen f8, king g5, queen e7, king h5, queen f7, king g5, queen g7, king to f4, g3 mate! And if you run to the other way with king h4, it's queen e7, king h5, f4, and queen g5 mate. I am not exaggerating. That is what could have happened. Listen, you clicked on a video called The Greatest Chess Move Never Played. And when we enter territory of never played, that is because in the forest of chess, 2 + 2 is 5, and the room to get out is only wide enough for one. That is a quote, okay? That is a quote. I'm pretty sure it's a quote from Tal. But at this point, I always mix up my quotes. This could have happened. If you would like an instant replay of that, we need to go back here. Jordan could have gone for this. Bishop h6, rook e4, and the line is knight e4, check, here, knight d6, and then you can't take this, you have to go here. And only in this position would the game have chilled out, white would have had a king in the middle of the board, and white would just vibe. White would just have to trade the queens and go king f1. And if Jordan had played this, he very well could have gone on to win this game. But he would have had to grind out this endgame. And the reason why this is not winning, even though white has a rook for a knight, black is up a pawn, and white has no way into the black position. Black would play bishop c7, something like king f3, bishop d6, and just hold fort. Like basically, you know, not allow white to infiltrate anywhere with the rook. But white is better. Bishop h6. An absolutely generational move to which I have dedicated an entire video, and this move never happened. And the complications after these two moves and this combo are so head-spinning. And ultimately, Jordan went h3, which is what most of us would have played. He spent 50 minutes, which sucks. I mean, you really gotta like convince yourself to get out of this. And then we did this, and then it was rook takes, and then rook e1, and bishop c7 back, and ultimately, you know, Jordan traded some pieces, and the rest of the game is not particularly interesting, because Jordan didn't go for it, and he had to grovel for a draw. You'll notice how black with the bishop pair, and the, you know, slightly asymmetrical structure puts some pressure. Wesley, one of the best endgame players in the world. Jordan, you know, ultimately got down to a pawn down endgame, but this is a dead draw. It's a dead draw because ultimately white creates a blockade on the light squares, puts the king on e2, puts the bishop here. Black has absolutely no way through, and that's it. Black can't push any of his pawns, and the game ultimately ended in a slightly, very slightly unpleasant draw, kind of like going to the toilet the day after eating too much spicy food. Folks, bishop h6. I will present this to you one more time before we end this video. I have almost never made a video like this. I don't think I've ever made something like this. When we analyze games, we always dive into what could have happened. But it's rarely that complicated. If Jordan had found the line, check here, rook e4, take, knight d6, g6, and calculated all of this, knight d6, I missed the move. I apologize. This is a totally different line, by the way. But check here, queen h6, knight d6, g6, takes. If Jordan had found this, he actually very well could have gone for this, but he probably didn't like his king in the center of the board. And with that, I will leave you with the greatest chess move that was never played. That is all I have for you today. Get out of here.